I wanted to get one more video before I left. Um, it's kind of I don't think most people would touch it, the topic, but I wanted to talk about it because it was something that recently happened to me, and I was thinking about it like all day on a couple of my work days, and I even watched a couple of YouTube videos talking about it, and um, I just wanted to share my thinking on it. And so what happened to me the other day was um, something that I think most people would just brush off, but I couldn't shake it. It continued to ring in my mind, and I had a pretty wide range of thoughts about it. My friend says to me over the headset, he says, well, at least he's Catholic. And it offended me initially, but it also made me question what he was actually saying. And is he, okay, so initial, okay, let's say you're not a Catholic, or um, what does the word Catholic mean? And I've already talked about that before with McGee talking about how everyone in heaven will be Catholic, but not Roman Catholic. You know, there's a difference. It's the meaning of the word is what he was talking about. And either the Latin or the Greek, I don't know, with the video I was watching, it means universal. And so when my friend said that, at least he's Catholic, was he saying to me that only Catholic people are saved? Or was he saying, was he belittling me? Was he trying to give me the middle finger, or was he saying, well, good thing he's Catholic, good thing he believes in God, was that all he was saying? Or was he trying to insult me? Was he being elitist? Well, only Catholic people are saved. It's clear. It's right in that Bible that I don't read. Was that what he was trying to say? That only Catholic people are saved? Well, at least he's Catholic. All you rotten Christians are going to hell because you're not Catholic. Was that what he was trying to say? I don't think so. I don't think my friend was trying to insult me. But that's the actual meaning of the word Catholic, is universal. And I think, well, you go into Acts, and that was the first church. The first church, there was just one church. It was just that church. And the video that I watched was a very impressive presentation. I liked a lot of what he said. I disagreed on one thing, but for the most part, I really liked it, and I agreed with the bottom line of his presentation. His presentation, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of his channel or what the name of the guy was, but I'll just give you the presentation as he did a whole dry erase board presentation listing a lot of stuff. But the center of the picture that he showed to the audience was the Bible. He showed a square. It was just like this, pretty much a square just like this, and he put at the center of it the Word of God, and he put a circle around that. So this was the center of his presentation, and he said, think about this as the timeline of the church, you know. And he started at the bottom, maybe it was the top right he started at. Or maybe it was I don't know. One of the corners he started at, we'll just say here, and he said, this is the start of the church. This, or no, it was down here. This is where he started. This is the start of the church in the book of Acts. And so when we started out, just one church altogether. Then, throughout the course of history, you formed the unification of... Okay, before I move on, the point was, this is the start of the church here in the corner. And so he drew another circle. So a quarter of the circle that was in the corner represented that a quarter of the church, or at least a piece of the church, was tied to the Word of God, which is everything. This should be everything to your church, you know. So he's making the point that the Bible itself, that's what we were just reading. I just finished Psalm 51, and the helps at the end of that psalm was talking about how Jesus' blood and water, it's by believing on his blood, but then cleansing, wash your feet, you know, that's talking about tied to the Word of God, which was the center of this guy's presentation, related to the word Catholic, universal. This should be the universal aspect of any denomination, should be the Word of God, regardless of if you're a staunch Catholic, like a lot of my family members will say that, staunch Catholic. It's a funny word, staunch. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but so anyway, the church was tied to the Word of God here. You got this circle that represents the start of the church. Then you have hundreds of years later, I don't know the historical numbers, I'm not that historical guy or anything. Then you have the Roman Catholic Church. And so some of it was tied to the Word of God, but then there was an aspect of it that was tied to work salvation and stuff that isn't in the Word of God, or misinterpretations of it. Or the problem was, see, when you draw that circle, and there's only a piece of the Bible that's in the circle. That's what the representation is. So you have the second denomination here would be the Roman Catholic Church. What was the problem with the Roman Catholic Church? Why do I get so insulted when somebody says, well, at least he's Catholic? I think of Roman Catholic immediately. What's so insulting about that to me? Well, I don't want to have anything to do with Zeus and Diana, and I don't want pagan idolatry in this Bible, you know? And that's part of the poison that the presentation was talking about with the Roman Catholic Church. I think even a Roman Catholic might even be saved and might be in his Bible, but when he starts basing his salvation on works or on the approval of the Pope, who just approved homosexuality, mind you. I don't know how you can be a Roman Catholic anymore. I don't think, I wouldn't want any attachment to the word Catholic. That's why I find it so insulting when my friend says that. So, your Pope, he approves of the homosexuality now. Okay, do you want me to find the verse in here that says that that's bad, that that's a sin? Can you see the problem with that? But there is part of it that is in the Word of God, which that's the universal aspect of the word Catholic that I think we can all agree with, that we want it all to be about the Word of God. So you had the early church, and then you had the Roman Catholic Church. Now you move over here to Lutheranism and all that, the Martin Luther, the Reformation, which they were removing themselves from the Roman Catholic Church because they didn't want the pagan idolatry. They didn't want indulgences. They didn't want a lot of that. They wanted to come back to the Word of God and be based on the Word of God, believing on Christ and not believing on what the Pope says. And if the Pope says he's saved, then he must be saved. They wanted to get away from all that. But then there's a part of even Protestantism, Lutheranism, that I forget what he brought up. Some aspect of it that was outside of the Word of God. And that's dangerous. See, that's always the problem. Stuff that's outside of the Word of God. See, you have these 4 circles all around this Bible, and the aspect of that denomination that's outside of the Word of God, that's the danger. That's the deception. That's the lie. That's the problem. So there's a problem with each of these denominations when they get out of the Word of God. That's why I get so insulted when he says Catholic. I want him to clarify his stance. But he says it so touch and go that it just... So, Protestantism, Lutheranism, okay? Then we move on down to evangelical, dispensation, Baptist, stuff that I like, that I pretty much for the most part, I agree with all of that. Does the Bible speak anything about Sunday school? That Sunday school is something that has to be in your life? No, it doesn't. I think it's good. I think Sunday school is something nice. I like to have a Bible study before church service. And then he also brought up about evening and morning church services. Is that something that has to be for you to be saved or for you to know God? We can only go to church in the evening. That's the only time we can have church. Otherwise, you are a devil worshiper. Some denominations might do that. They might confuse the issue and say, oh, we can't have that. It's only properly at 7 in the morning. That's the only time we can have church service. Which, of course, is ridiculous. I mean, you can have church anytime, really. I mean, that's... You bring it back to this, which should be everything. And I don't think there's any specific time on church service. I mean, maybe if you followed some of the Jewish laws and that kind of thing, you might have it on Friday, right? And it might be late at night. That's cool if you want to do that. But I think Christ made it that you could... That's what this is. If it's tied to the Word, does the Word actually say that? And his other argument, his problem with the Baptist church, he was talking about salvation, which is a big argument that we've been arguing about for forever. So I disagreed with him on that aspect, but I wholeheartedly agree with him that the Word of God is the center. And once you get out of the Word of God. You've got these 4 circles around the Word of God, and the part of the circle that's outside of the Word of God, that's where the danger occurs. That's where Satan can manipulate. And then you get into all the other denominations in he brought up then some of the other religions today, some of the cults that, you know, probably Scientology would be in there, and Mormonism, and he was talking about charismatic movement, I think was the word. And you could talk about some of the money-making ministries of Creflo Dollar and all that. Well, if you ain't making $100,000 a year, well, you're clearly not in God's blessing, so you need to give me $10,000 right now, and I can buy a jet. And of course, all that is ridiculous. I don't think you're guaranteed millions of dollars just because you're a Christian and you believe on Him. You know, I think you're blessed in other ways that maybe you take for granted, but I think He does give you what you need. So anyway, bottom line with that whole presentation, I really liked that. I wish I had remembered what his name was and everything, but it was very good. You can probably look it up. What I typed in was Catholic versus Roman Catholic is what I typed in on YouTube, and you can probably find that same presentation that I was looking at. It's like 20 or 25 minutes. So the bottom line is, with that word universal, I think there will be people and that's something that McGee really emphasized. And it's not your denomination that makes you so special. We like to be elitist about our different denominations, when what you should be elitist about is right here. Whether your denomination is really in this, this is the key. The Word of God. So I don't care if my friend was being insulting to me, fine. I don't care. But tie it back to the Word of God. If you're going to call yourself a Catholic today, if you're going to call yourself a Lutheran, you're going to call yourself a Baptist. I would call myself probably a Baptist. But I don't really want to do any of that. I don't want to separate us all into different denominations. We're all divided today. What about the early church? What about the original church? Did they have a bunch of denominations? Were we all Catholic at that time? Did everybody, was this the focus of religion at that time? Or maybe your personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Was this the center of it, of your conversations with God? Or was it some made-up sacrament or religious demonstration or religious hoopty-doo-da-day, you know? That's the danger, is always the part that's outside of this. And so, I love my friend. I don't care if he's a Catholic. I don't care if you're a Catholic. I don't care if you're this. I don't care if you're that. But I think this should be the center of whatever you're claiming to be. So be careful what you claim. I hope you got this backing it up.